My name is Kathy Lester. I'm the chair of its LanguageLoop, and very proudly so. I'm joined today by other members of the board of its LanguageLoop, sitting in this row. So Draga Jevtik, who's going to stand up and wave. Iva Tsihuridu. And Noble Tay, my colleague. And there's other board members, some of whom, it must be said, are having a very hard time on the French Riviera and in Italy, but they send their very best. I'd like to welcome all of you here. This is our second event, and December was such a great hit, and we enjoyed it so much, and so did you, that we thought we had to have you back again. And we hope to do this more often, and in fact create situations where we get a chance to hear from you and get feedback. It's not the ideal venue for that, but please do wander and talk to our staff, to our board members, because we want to hear your experience and how we can improve LanguageLoop. So before we begin the formalities, I'm going to read the acknowledgement of country, and there's a prize for guessing the language. I won't tell you. A megbélekessé szellemében LanguageLoop elismeri az ország hagyományos megőrzött Ausztrália szerte, valamint a kapcsolatokat a földdel, tengerrel és a községgel, tiszteletünket fejezzük ki a múlt és jeleni tisztébeli emberekkel iránt, és kiterjesztjük ma ezt a tiszteletet minden országos és szoros szigeti népre is. The language? How many? Hungarian. Okay, you get the further wrong. We have about over 30, Katarina, is that right? We have over 30 acknowledgements of country on the LanguageLoop website. And it's been heartwarming to see that newly arrived communities really want to acknowledge the traditional owners and are using it, and we're being asked for more and more languages to go on the website. It is a powerful statement for newcomers to say we acknowledge where we are and who the original inhabitants of this country are. So please, you should make others aware of that if you're interpreting in a community event. I should say Womanjika, which is welcome, but this group will understand that it's actually not a direct translation. It doesn't actually mean welcome. It means gathering here for a purpose. And our purpose today is threefold. First of all, it's because we want to bring you together and thank you for the unbelievable skill, care and dedication that you show to our clients and the way in which you support access to all kinds of services. So we can't say that enough. We can't give you enough drinks to thank you. We're looking at more meaningful ways of thanking you. But it is an opportunity to acknowledge that you are the heart of the organisation. So thank you is the first reason that we're here. The second is that we have a fantastic celebration tonight. We're going to be introducing to you, although I know some of you already know him, the new CEO of its LanguageLoop, Emiliano Zucchi. Now, important that we remember that it's Zucchi, even though, because in Italian the double C is a K, I learned today, like zucchini. Okay, even though he's a double C-H-I. I wanted to put zucchini, like a figure of a zucchini, but I show my age because the younger people said in social media and emojis having a zucchini is not such a good thing, Kathy. So I left off the zucchini, but remember, he is Zucchi. And whatever the name, however we pronounce it, we are just so excited to have an ongoing great CEO for this great organisation. I will be introducing Emiliano in a little while. And then, because your family, and this is a family event, family celebrations are always bittersweet, aren't they? When your kids graduate from high school or university, it's great joy, but there's always a sense of time passing, and there's a sort of a different stage. So at the same time, we're also farewelling George Bisas, who has been our interim CEO for the last 18 months, and he's going on to a wonderful stage of life, travelling the world in retirement, and he's still going to be part of our extended family. So there are 3 reasons for gathering here tonight. So, a little bit more about Emiliano. So Emiliano, we stole from the ECCV. He's been the CEO of the ECCV, where he did amazing things, and they were very, very sad to lose him. A little bit cross with me, but we're working on it. He doubled their core funding, and that's a KPI for you for here too. He improved their policy capability and their advocacy. So he was a huge asset to that organisation, and the skills that he brings to LanguageLoop will be no less significant for our organisation. Before that, Emiliano was directly in language services, in health actually. He was the Director of Transcultural and Language Services at Northern Health, and he introduced their first reconciliation plan, their first transcultural responsiveness program policy, and their disability access policies. So very strongly and very deeply aware of how these sorts of things are important to get right. So Emiliano also has an academic background in language, and he loves language, and he understands the complexities of language, and he understands exactly what the hard job that interpreters and translators do. So we're super delighted that he brings that. When we interviewed Emiliano, we went through a very rigorous search, and we had some fantastic shortlisted people. We asked Emiliano, the obvious sort of interview question. So why do you want the job, and why do you want to come to LanguageLoop? And he said, well, I have a passion for language and language services. And he said, I want to come to Wits LanguageLoop because, and think of all the cultural stereotypes. He said, LanguageLoop is the Ferrari of language services. So we thought, if someone thinks that we're a Ferrari, that's pretty good. I guess it'll mean that he's going to drive us very fast and very far, and he's going to be very skillful at manoeuvring the twists and turns of the language services sector, which we know is very dynamic. But Emiliano is also hugely fun. He's from Rome. He's a great cook, even if he says so himself. He has an oven, a pizza oven at home, and he makes fantastic pizza and pasta. I'm waiting for that invitation. He picks his olives, his family's olives, and he makes his own olive oil, and I'm sure that might feature in some prizes in the future. He is a man about town, and he is excited and enthusiastic about LanguageLoop and meeting you all, and I'm sure you're going to get a great deal from talking and meeting him. So I'm now going to ask Emiliano to say a few things, to introduce himself maybe a little bit more properly.
Thank you, Professor Lester. Good evening. It's so great to see so many of you here. I do know a lot of you. Those of you who I don't know, nice to meet you. I'd like also to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, but as a tradition here at LanguageLoop, I will do so in my mother tongue, in Italian. Nello spirito di riconciliazione riconosco i custodi tradizionali del territorio in cui ci troviamo, i Wurundjeri della nazione Kulin, e il loro legame con le terre, le acque e il firmamento. rendo omaggio ai loro anziani passati e presenti ed estendo oggi questo rispetto a tutte le persone aborigene e indigene delle isole dello Stretto di Torres qui presenti. I highly encourage, as Professor Lester said before, everyone who's called on to make a speech to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land in their mother tongue. It reinforces our identity as a diverse nation and demonstrates to the first peoples of this nation our commitment to walking the talk. I, in fact, take this opportunity, like Professor Lester did before, to remind you that a version in your language is available, a version of the acknowledgement is available and can be downloaded on the LanguageLoop website. As well as acknowledging the traditional custodians, I would also like to acknowledge all people here with a lived experience of discrimination. Whether it was due to cultural diversity, gender, sexuality, disability, or indeed any intersecting form of diversity, I and LanguageLoop stand with you. As Professor Lester said, until very recently I was the CEO of the Ethnic Communities Council of Victoria, also known as, or better known as ECCV. Prior to that, I was responsible for language services at Northern Health, and I take the opportunity to say hello to some former colleagues and staff members that I can see here tonight. And that's also where I met many of you in that role. And before Northern Health, I was a university lecturer and academic for about 10 years. It's good to be home. Thank you for having me back. I mentioned my previous roles because I learned something important from all of them. As a lecturer and academic, I learned about the importance of second language acquisition, of research, and passing on knowledge. From Northern Health, I discovered the fundamental importance language services have in the health context and the impact they have on equitable health outcomes, regardless of one's diversity. At the ECCV, the importance of community engagement, consultation, and involvement in co-designing policies and services became apparent very, very quickly. And now, at LanguageLoop, I have the privilege and opportunity to bring my three careers together under one. But before I continue, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank, first of all, Professor Lester and the LanguageLoop Board for the privilege to lead this Victorian institution. I would like to also thank my predecessor, the amazing George Bisas, for all he has done for our industry and for all he will continue to do thanks to his knowledge and experience. I'd like to thank my new staff members for making me feel welcome straight away, for their commitment, expertise, and their passion. Most importantly, I'd like to thank all of you here tonight, interpreters and translators, for the work you do day in and day out to bridge the communication gap and allowing Australians from diverse backgrounds to access services. So, why LanguageLoop? You will have understood by now that I'm strongly committed to the public sector. In a multicultural nation like Australia, I believe language services are an essential service, just like education or health, and as such, it needs to be of the highest quality. Unfortunately, language barriers often mean that not all Australians have the same access to services and therefore equitable outcomes. This is not acceptable. We are all Australian and we are all deserving of the same quality of services, the same opportunities in life. As a government agency, we have a duty to fellow Victorians and Australians to eliminate inequalities by bridging the communication gap via interpreting and translation services of the highest quality. It is our duty to lead the way, set the example, raise the bar. To do this, we have to support you, our professional interpreters and translators, and we have to raise awareness about the fundamental role that you play in every context where language is a barrier. We will work tirelessly to make sure that you receive the respect you deserve, and we put you in the best possible position to do your work effectively. We have challenges ahead of us, but nothing unsurmountable. Artificial intelligence, for example, is often cited by many as a risk. But I believe that we shouldn't be afraid of change, and that we should embrace technology and use it to improve our work. Interpreters and translators have been around as long as human life itself, and we will continue to be around for a long time. Our role will change, but it will continue to be central to our lives. I'm very much looking forward to resuming my journey in this industry with you all. And in the weeks and months to come, I hope to meet again, listen to your concern, and harness your experience so that together we may offer the best possible language services to our amazingly diverse and beautiful communities. Thank you very much.
A thoughtful and passionate CEO. So I should now say that Emiliano inherited a great car from George. George rejoined Wits LanguageLoop as our interim CEO, and over the last 18 months he's actually not just lifted the bonnet on us, but actually stripped the car and restarted it to make it a really fantastic Ferrari. All CEOs dream of this, that you want to come to an organisation and leave it better than when you started, as you found it. And that's exactly what George has done. And I have to say, on behalf of the board and the staff, George, we are so hugely grateful. And you've done an amazing job in a record short period of time. I can't think of anyone else who could have done that job that you've done for us. So maybe a quick applause just on that. I should also say that this is actually, George does a little bit of a Melba. Do you know what that means? People who weren't born here won't know. But Dame Nellie Melba kept retiring and coming back. There was her farewell concert, and then there was another farewell concert, and then there was another farewell concert. So George actually was with Wits LanguageLoop 8 years ago now, I guess. And then he was poached by Sydney. There's a lot of poaching in our sector, you may notice. And so we thought it was only fair that we poached him back. And he came, can I say, not for the weather. He was in Sydney. He came not for the weather. He came partly for family and partly for the bigger family of Wits itself, because of his dedication and love for this organisation. And so I think that's the highest accolade, that you have a CEO who knows the organisation, knows all the issues, and still wants to come back to help out. I think that's absolutely amazing. George, I'm going to ask you to speak. We have actually already, as a board, presented George with some gifts. So we won't be doing that tonight, but he might show one of those gifts at the end of his speech to you, and then we'll explain. But George, can I ask you to talk to us? Tell us some of the exciting things you might have planned and how you will never really leave us.
Hello everyone, look, I'll be very short. I've got 3 things to do. I've got to say thank you, I've got to say goodbye, and I've got to say, look, open the bar. So I'm the only thing that stands between you and food and drink. So I promise to be extremely short so we can get straight to the bar, including myself. Look, Kathy's right. I'm very passionate about the industry. I'm very passionate about language services. For those who don't know, my mum was one of the first Greek interpreter translators in Australia, having finished the RMIT course in 1977. and having been on the original committee that set up NATI as well. So we're indoctrinated in my family about the value and importance of interpreting and translating, and so it's always been a passion of mine. And the other passion of mine has been human rights, and both of them, I think, link very closely together, because the work that you do is about ensuring that people have their rights upheld and their ability to access the services and programs that a lot of us take for granted. But without your help, a lot of people wouldn't be able to access those services. I want to thank many of you. Look, first of all, I'd like to thank Kathy and the Board of Directors. It's been great working with the board. Kathy's right. I was in Sydney for 6 years as Head of Interpreting and Translating for the New South Wales Government, and the opportunity to come back to help LanguageLoop when it was in a fairly transitional and a strong period of change was an invitation that was too hard to turn up. So I was really pleased to be able to do that, and I'm very pleased with handing the organisation over to Emiliano in the position it's in at the moment. So I was thank you to the board and the chair for their support. To the staff of LanguageLoop, who have been extremely supportive to me. Some of them were still here from when I was here 7 or 8 years ago, and were quite happy to welcome me back. I thank all of them for the work they've done. Can I make a particular mention tonight of our Director of People and Culture, Lisa McCarthy, who is leaving LanguageLoop next week. So I want to thank Lisa publicly and thank her for the work she's done for LanguageLoop and all of the staff at LanguageLoop for the support they've given me. But look, let's be frank about it. We wouldn't exist without you. I've often said to the board, I've often said to the staff that LanguageLoop is the work done by the interpreters and translators. We can set up technology and systems and finances and processes, but if we don't have anybody to do the interpreting and translating, we don't have an organisation. So you are the core of what we do. I've met many of you. Many of you have called me and had coffee with me. Many of you have rung me and told me how happy they are that I'm back. A few of you have rung me to tell me how unhappy you are that I'm back. I've had the opportunity to have coffee and lunch and dinner with many of you, and I appreciate that, and I thank you very much for that opportunity. You've provided me with a lot of feedback about how we can change the organisation, but realistically, without you, we would not exist. So a very big thank you to all of you, to the support you continue to give this organisation, which I consider to be the premier and the #1 language services agency in Australia, and I thank you for the support and the assistance you've given LanguageLoop over that time. Thank you so much. Look, that's all I wanted to say. I just want to say, please use the opportunity tonight. Please come up and say hello. Come and have a drink with me. Don't each of you have a drink with me, because I'll have to be carried out tonight. But do come and say hello and goodbye, and I really appreciate that. Thank you all for your efforts. And that's all, Kathy.